Hi everybody, Troy from the Do-It-Yourself world on the Off-Grid Project. A garden update is long overdue. It is partially overgrown and partially growing well. This is a weed, but most of these are lettuce that has gone to seed here in the foreground. And I've let that happen naturally because then next year I'll have more lettuce as I did this year without planting anything. And I do have, it's a bit of a wild garden, but what you have here, again, this is lettuce. This is lettuce that is going to seed. And that's all lettuce here, which is reseeding itself for next year. Over here, these are all herbs, which I'm going to start harvesting, by the way, and drying for to put them away for next year. Now, oddly, my catnip died out. I don't know what happened, but it has been a really intensely hot, brutally hot summer. So the catnip died right out. There are a couple little baby catnip plants down in here that are coming up and still living here and there. So, you know, there's hope of repopulation. I just don't know what happened here, but it has been really, really brutal. So these are all herbs, various types of herbs. This one's a beautiful gigantic bush, and I don't know if you can see, there's bees and butterflies everywhere. Now here we have, this is a massive herb, has grown tremendously this year. There's a big herb. This is all herbs up in here, all herbs, followed by a chunk of weeds which I have to clean out, because beyond that I have a tomato bed. Some tomatoes are rotting on the vine, and I don't know exactly what's wrong here. I just went through and I cleaned out all the rot. But this is all my tomato garden here. I did not get them stood up on stands and propped up. I may still try to do it. It's not too late. Over here I've got some cucumbers growing, extending up into the over the tarp area. And I've got some wild tomatoes that grow on their own, which are going to definitely bear fruit this year. My grapevines are climbing and getting higher, and I've got various grapes. And over here I got some more grapes and some more grapes and some more grapes. My raspberries did not bear fruit this year. They do bear fruit on second-year canes. And so there's one. This one spread out really nicely, so that'll be really bushy for next year. That one really grew well this year. And then I've got 3-4 more grapes in a row over there. A couple of the raspberries died out and just vanished. They just never came up this year, but the grapes are all okay. Again, it's a bit of a wild garden because I have been working so much on other things. But the leaf mulch I put down as ground cover helped a lot. I just came through and I went through and picked my zucchini and squash, and most were rotting on the... So the chickens got a nice feast. I do not know why they were rotting on the vine. They were not overgrown, and it hasn't been too wet or too dry. It rains just about every second or third day here, so I don't know. But the powdery mildew is a bad disease that's wasting away my plants. Here is a remnant of an entire plant that rotted away. They just rotted, and I don't know what's going on. I've never had this happen before, ever in my life. I've never had my summer squash and zucchini go bad on me. I ate a couple out of here earlier in the season, and now they're just rotting, literally rotting. They're still blooming. You can see the blooms, but the fruit is rotting on the vine. And the plants are nice looking, but the fruit is rotting. And the same with my tomatoes over here. I threw away a mess of tomatoes that were rotting on the vine, and the chickens are loving it, but I cannot explain what happened. Oh, here, I just noticed something is eating every single leaf off this plant and has eaten the tomato. This is odd. I don't know what's doing this, but this is definitely a bad thing. Something has stripped off every leaf off that entire plant, and here, almost looks like there's deer getting in my garden. But, yeah, I don't know. I think deer must be getting out here. There shouldn't be deer. I haven't seen any deer in the garden. Look at this. Look at this. I don't know what is doing this. Look here. I don't see any worms, but something is eating my entire tomato plants. I haven't seen anything out here and I don't see any worms, so I don't know what's doing this. It's really odd this year. I've really got some strange things going on in my garden with dying and rotting fruits, rotting tomatoes. There's one starting to turn. It'll probably rot before it turns. And those go to the birds. They love it. See, here's another tomato that's been half eaten by something. It must be deer. But again, I haven't seen a deer out in the yard at all. I've got the electric fence on around the entire property, but the chickens are feasting. Anyway, the tomatoes are branching out, and there's going to be heaps of fruit later in the season if I can figure out what is eating and killing things and why some of my plants are rotting. I've got broccoli growing, but broccoli never does well here because of the cold. I got to start planting them either in the spring, in the cold spring months, or in the later fall months, because broccoli bolts. And here you have an example of broccoli bolting. Yeah, broccoli just does not fare well here at all. So here's another one bolting. Broccoli doesn't grow nice heads here. It just shoots up and makes this ugly looking head like this at best. I'll eat it. I'll cut it off and I'll eat it, and it'll continue shooting up heads like that. But that's the best it's going to get. My cucumbers have been growing vigorously, and these two little plants, or three little plants here, have been providing more fruit than I can eat, so I've been giving them away. So that's definitely very, very good. And then there's some little tomatoes growing here, and my strawberries went to sleep. It was too hot. My strawberries died down to nothing. That actually looks like basil in a way. Looks like basil that went to seed. So, yeah, anyway, I didn't get any root vegetables in because it was too hot this year and nothing is growing well. I do have amaranth, which I'll harvest here. This is amaranth. And there's a whole mess of it here, which I need to harvest before it reseeds itself. Otherwise, I'll have an amaranth field here. But amaranth is a very good, healthy, edible green. People pay a lot of money for it. So there's an overview of my garden this year. The herbs are doing really, really, really well. So this is seed heads forming, so that's going to reproduce, although it will grow back next year anyway. And this is just the most beautiful growth right here. That's one plant. Next year I'm going to have to thin these out because this one is going to overtake everything else. And so I'm going to have to really rework my herb beds for next year. So the, I don't know if I never say it right, echinacea or whatever you say, is end of season. The woolly yarrow flowered, bloomed, and died back and is growing again. And I had something else here that vanished. So it's been really brutal. The heat this year, it's been 90 degrees plus since May. And it's just really intense. Even the chili peppers didn't really do anything yet this year. None of my chilies really grew. And they're just sort of struggling. It's I think the sun is burning off the moisture as soon as the rains hit. The sun burns it off. But I'm going to have this mulched next year, and with the tarps helped a lot, and the leaf mulch really helped a lot. I didn't have to weed at all this entire year in the two tomato beds that I mulched with leaves. So that worked out very nicely. So yeah, next year is going to be way, way, way better, but that is how it is when you're living alone and off the grid, slowly growing your own vegetables and extending your own garden organically. And again, next year I'll have all the mulch and the walkways done, So this fall I plan on really working the garden heavily with the mulch that I have and all the leaves. I'm going to dump all the leaves here. So it'll be way, way better next year. Getting there. Slowly I'm getting progress. But I'm very pleased with the herbs. Very, very pleased with how that worked out so far. That's all herbs. It's just growing out of control. Got to thin them out. So let's take you over to the rock beds and I'll show you the good and the bad over here. Due to the brutal heat, you can see my plants wilting. I do have some squash growing, some gourds, okay. These were some various gourds, and that's the only thing that survived out here is the gourds. Everything else died from the heat. All of my vines that I had planted, melons and pumpkins and squash and gourds and acorn squash, all died. I couldn't do a thing. Watermelons, they all died. It was just too hot, and nothing made it. Now my peppermint is thriving. My peppermint is really, really thriving. And I don't know if you can see the butterflies and the bees all through here, if that'll show up on the HD video or not, but that really turned out very, very well. That is one of the best things this year of all. My, oh, I forgot the name of it suddenly. I'm baking in the sun. The sun is intense. Oh, creeping phlox. The phlox is really doing well and spreading out. Some of my herbs died. I cannot grow lavender here at all, and my 2 sage plants are struggling miserably from the heat. Like I said, peppermint is just incredible. Violets, violas are surviving. They come and go depending on how hot it is and how rainy it is. All of my moss, my ground cover died. There's frogs everywhere this year. Everywhere. So you can't tell me it's not raining enough, because there's frogs just all over the place in this property. There are frogs in my garden, there are frogs in my lawn, there's frogs everywhere this year. They're just thick. Maybe it was too much rain, I don't know. My creeping Jenny is suffering miserably. All my beautiful moss ground cover is suffering. Up here I've got some violas trying to grow, but again, the sun is burning everything out this year. I've never had it so hot. In all the years I've been in New York, it's never been so hot. Everything here burnt out. You can see it's just burnt to a crisp. It rains, but then it just burns to a crisp. This bed has done better because it's been in partial shade most of the day. So this rock garden bed has done better. So are the trees that I keep trying to pull out every day. I'm constantly pulling out plants that are growing that aren't supposed to be. My chamomile died out. My lemongrass is really happy. Really, really happy. The boy, sun is baking my head. I gotta think. Yeah, you guys know what these are. I can't think all of a sudden. These are doing really well and growing the whole entire year. They are coming and going based on the intensity of the heat, but they'll die off and then they'll regrow. See, that one's died off, and then there's one growing nicely. But they're really pretty. They're really doing well. And I'm going to save a lot of the heads and replant, but a lot of these will grow back from seed that dropped off during the year. I've got sweet leaf. Really struggling from the heat, but holding on. It's trying. My dill died off. It really didn't do well. It was not good. I've got here an herb, which I forgot what it was. The label is gone, but it's really pretty flowers. Really fuzzy leaves and pretty flowers. Not very much vegetation at all, though. And here I've got some rosemary. It is holding on. All the trees and blueberry shrubs and stuff keep trying to grow around. I'll have to get the hatchet out again. The rosemary is alive, but not really thriving. So I'm really going to have to mulch that heavily this winter and see if I can keep it alive. Here I keep chopping this down with a hatchet. All of my vines died. Well, they didn't really die. I staked them up with these stakes. See, they didn't do anything all year. I planted them in spring and they've done nothing at all the entire year. They haven't died, they just haven't grown. I think it's just too hot. See, they've done nothing. They're still like the day I planted them. So, not very good. There's another chamomile. There's one pitiful little flower trying to struggle for life. And there's a couple little pieces of green growth down there. But it didn't like the summer either. This chamomile is holding on for life and trying to survive. It's trying to struggle. Over here I've got some herbs. Again, somehow the chicken scratched away my labels, which is a bummer. But here I've got an herb, an unknown herb. Here I've got some sage. Here I've got some Thai basil. I think it was Thai basil. And there I've got a form of basil that really wasn't happy this year at all. It's another form of basil that's struggling. And here again is another tree trying to cover up another herb I planted, a mystery herb, because the chickens again deleted my sign, scratching. When they were getting out free, they were scratching my mulch. See, there's mulch over here that should be inside the flower bed. So there you have it. That's an overview of my entire garden and my herbs and flower beds. The sage didn't do much. It's just the sage and the basil. This one grew a little, but these guys here didn't really do anything at all this year. Well, that's an overview. It's been a harsh year. It's been really hot, and nothing's really growing. It's really just sort of on hold. I don't know if I'll get a growth spurt when it cools off, but since May it's been brutally hot and extremely humid. It's been in this 50 to 70, 80, 90% humidity range since spring. It's been really a different year. So not very good for the plants. But anyway, let me show you my cucumber harvest. I have a bucket here. I do have one squash. It's sunburnt. It's not very big, but it got sunburnt. Or a zucchini, sorry, summer squash. It's sunburnt, but here's a whole mess of cucumbers. The cucumbers are really, really good here. There's a really scary, ugly thing. I don't like the looks of it at all. I've never seen such a thing. Don't like it. Hope it goes away. It looks dangerous. Anyway, that's my cucumbers, and I've been giving these away. They've been growing heavily for weeks now, and it's way too much for me to eat alone, so I've been giving these away to some friends. So that's definitely good. Oh, and then I've got my, for the first time ever, I have grown lavender in pots. Because it rains so much, the pots have kept them alive. So my 2 lavender plants are good, and I've got here a another herb that I lost the name to, salvia. It's salvia. The outer ends died, but it's got new growth in the middle, and that's in the original pot. I'm going to replant it. Now my aquaponics, obviously the heat of summer is not the best for growing salad. It bolted and went to seed. My dandelion is okay. I'm happy I put the catnip here because they're alive. There's another salad that bolted. All the lettuce plants bolted because of the heat. It was just too intensely hot. And there's a dandelion in there that is growing well. I could eat these leaves. They're perfectly fine and edible, but nothing else really did well because of the intense heat. It's just salad, just lettuce cannot grow in this heat. So I'm going to do another planting, and when it cools off, it eventually will cool off, I'm sure. And then I'll have, like I said, these guys will be fine. The catnip plants will be fine, and they're doing okay. It was an experiment, and I didn't expect it would do very well because of the heat, and of course, you know, it didn't. But I will replant, and it is a successful experiment. There you have it. That's the updates in my garden and vegetables and herbs.